So, it appears that the Division inspired FPS, or I would say a combination of the Division, Ghost Recon, and whatnot FPS inspiration game, which is called Xdefiant, is coming very soon. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about it in relationship to Tom Clancy's The Division, one of the reasons why I think this is a game that may appeal to some Division players, and why I think it's a game that may not appeal to some Division players. Simply put, it's an FPS, and that already kind of, crosses out a significant player base, and the fact that it's also FPS is also attractive to a significant player base. Now, the tests had been going on for a while, but I haven't necessarily participated in the more recent open tests, nor have I participated in any of the closed tests. But for those of you who got to see gameplay and see footage of the game when the game was actually set to jump out, but then got reined back in because apparently it seemed like standards were not met when it came to, say, the Sony launch and so on and so forth, you knew that this game was going to have elements of the Division and the Division 2 in it. In fact, what we saw were some factions from the trailers and from the advertising. We got to see some factions from the Division 2. We got to see some factions from the Ghost Recon games. And I think one thing that, has not necessarily happened is Ubisoft dialing heavily into its own original IPs, especially when in the shooter category, it did maintain a strikingly strong audience. I think the bet to go do games like the Star Wars game or to go do games like the Avatar game really did kind of drag away from the capability to drop, many of these titles in very good succession to just leverage, their audiences that were there. If you think about Ghost Recon Wildlands, which actually did pretty well, and even Ghost Recon Breakpoint was okay after they came back and they revamped the game, abandoning the game was not, in my opinion, a sound move, as much as they may have told everybody, hey, this is what we're going to do, and so on and so forth. Leaving the game to its own, to its own thing in the corner somewhere, in my opinion, did not necessarily resonate as good stewardship. I think that's probably Ubisoft's biggest challenge, being able to manage their projects long term and be able to harness, even though it may be a little challenging at first, but there are benefits. Even within their own ranks, they see benefits. You can look at even, For Honor. You can look at their Rainbow Six Siege, which are games that they nurtured all that long. So we don't necessarily know how they're going to go ahead and nurture Xdefiant. It seemed to have had some turbulence in terms of when it was wanting to come out. And even Tom Henderson here, he put a caveat in his own reporting. In fact, if you look at his tweet here, he says, never once have I needed to put in my own report, take with a pinch of salt, because I trust my own reporting. But given how turbulent XD's development has been, it felt warranted this time. And that's a very, very interesting, conundrum in terms of that. So let's take a quick look at some highlights here in the article. I mean, not going to sit down and read the whole thing to you guys. If you would love to read it, you can check on, on Tom Henderson's Twitter page. Insider Gaming has learned that Xdefiant is gearing up for its server test session to take place on April 19th, which is just a few days from today, following the report on the toxic work culture, blah, 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 which, by the way, the new heads that came in, pretty much had taken care of those issues that were actually brewing within the studio, according to reports that we heard on the social media channels, which confirmed our previous report that a game was delayed and another test session will be coming soon to test the game's issues. If the current internal testing goes well, the test is set to take place on Friday. Despite the original announcement stating that this will be a 12-hour session, Insider Gaming understands that if things go well, the team doesn't face unprecedented issues. The tech test is scheduled to run the entire weekend and end on Sunday. Sources have said this is almost a guarantee, and an official announcement should be made in the next day or two. Now, we're probably going to be seeing this announcement come, here in the next few hours, I'm guessing, and then they'll basically put it out there and say, hey, come in and test the game, or maybe it might be a private test. We don't necessarily know. But at the end of the day, the release cycle is probably the main thing that I'm sure a lot of people who are interested would want to take into account. And like I said, the FPS people who even still play the Division may be able to look at the game and say, okay, this game may have some elements to it. The game seems to want to be bringing in some things that Call of Duty is doing successfully. I wish they had actually gone for a full title. That would have more than likely been a commercial, hit out the door. Ubisoft shooters, they kind of sneakishly do well if they're supported very well. That's just what I would say, sneakishly. But I wanted to go ahead and highlight this little report here, and I wanted to go ahead and hear you guys' thoughts in the comment section. Not really an FPS competitive shooter guy in my own right. I mean, I'll play some FPSs, but you know, you're not gonna see me much on a lot of these servers. But you never know, man. The game might have some appealing aspects to it. I'll probably give it a shot when it releases. I mean, I think I will. I owe it to the game to give it a shot. But if I don't like it, I'm gonna stick with the Division. You know how I roll. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.